Hello, everyone. Mario contacted me. Well, it was more like a nudge that left some extra knowledge in my mind. Apparently, it seems he is close to communicating with the Queen of the Aishi, deep within his mind. But this is tricky, even for a dream priest. The Queen is dead, but a piece of her lives on, like his fellow dream priests. It is a residual energy his mind absorbs, and he is only beginning to understand this power. He believes it is actually tied to the Great Schism when the medallion created his version of his self. I wasn't there when you fought Ralu Azath, but his memories flood into my mind. Anyway, we have a little more time to wait before he can show us the Queen. So we just need to continue on our path, picking up transmissions. And it seems it's on its way. I wonder where this will lead us this time. Let's listen.
Sydney, 1842. This is the first year this town is now a city. But the Commonwealth of Australia is still many decades away. Wait. This opera house is not from this time. Timelines seem to be converging on this spot. Or am I fluctuating through portals? So hard to know, so difficult to understand. Perhaps it's related to these team names I see flash before me. Perhaps it is because I'm lost and don't even know if I'm in the past, present, or future. The memories I have speak of a dwindling prison-born population. The Brits have ceased transport. Again, out of place. The Opera House. Could this be a clue? Maybe the key hides itself this way. Maybe a residual energy exists from another space. Time is not linear. Isn't that right, Franklin? This is a dangerous place. Murders. Too many innocents killed for no reason. Violence seems to follow me. Wait. Why did I say that? Is it a clue to who I am? Is it the darkness that comes closer to me? The Opera House, it laughs at me. It shows up, but I cannot go there. It's like a picture on the wall. Gold will be discovered close by soon, and transportation infrastructure will be built. But this is just the beginning. The city is just getting started. Sydney, 1842. We are many years from the game known as American football. Or is it American world football now? All that exists in this time, violent, strange games, origins from the past, roughly related. But then, the Opera House. Franklin, could a crack in the void lead to multiple worlds? One where things are not what they seem? Or does a leak in the void corrupt? This seems important. All I am is a whisper in a strange world riding on the wind. I am incomplete. I am torn and tattered, pulled from somewhere, but disconnected from other parts of myself. The key, it is the only hope. But it isn't my hope. Franklin, beware the quest. Everything is not what it seems.
Welcome to the quest for the Green Ball, lost in dreamlands, and welcome to week 9, which means we are down to the final 3 out of division games before we all close the season inside our own divisions. And the matchups this week show us how things are heating up with an all-star docket of games, with an essential elimination game as 2-2 and 6 teams go at it, a huge 3-5 versus 4-4 matchup, a first place battle, and battles between teams that have been high in the power rankings. And of course, we get a battle of 2 5-3 teams that are just one game back in their divisions in the next as the Stellar Bitches travel to take on Risky Business in Sydney, 1842. The Stellar Bitches are in a bit of a bye-week hell here, so they will need to make several moves with Jordan Mason, Najee Harris, and the 49ers defense not playing this week. Risky Business clearly has the advantage in projections because the Stellar Bitches have yet to pull the trigger on replacement moves, but this is a huge matchup, so they will need to do something. No one wants to lose this one with so many tiebreaker implications, so let's look at what we know. Sam Darnold versus Jared Goff will certainly be a key spot. Darnold has cooled a bit since his hot start, but he gets a good matchup against Indianapolis on Sunday night. It could be a bounce-back game, but he will probably need Joe Flacco to do well on the other side to force him to throw the ball instead of giving it to Aaron Jones. Goff has been on fire with accuracy, completion percentage, and play-action deep balls, but the Lions are so good on special teams, creating turnovers and running the ball, that Goff is sometimes limited by game script. He gets Green Bay this week, which is more vulnerable to the run. The Stellar Bitches probably need touchdowns, as passing yards might be low. Justin Jefferson is also a beast who helps Darnold, with Risky Business hoping for double the touchdown points. Double your fun. Zach Moss is a bye-week replacement for the Stellar Bitches, who is touchdown dependent, and Kyron Williams and J.K. Dobbins have been tough to stop on the other side, so the advantage goes to Risky Business there. Jake Ferguson versus Tucker Kraft will most likely come down to who can score, and Kaimi Fairbairn versus Evan McPherson is a rare kicker battle that the Stellar Bitches really need to win. The Stellar Bitches will also most likely need touchdowns by Michael Pittman and Darnell Mooney to keep pace. The 2 players I'm going to call out in this one are at different positions. For the Stellar Bitches, I turn to wide receiver Zay Flowers. Flowers was a surprising trade pickup by the Bitches, sending A.J. Brown to remember the Titans. But while Flowers has only scored 1 touchdown, he has racked up yards and targets in 3 of the last 4 weeks. The problem with Baltimore is that they love to run the ball with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell is also practicing again, and he could add to those rushing totals. The Ravens also traded for Deontay Johnson to give another target for Jackson, which will probably take some opportunities away from Flowers. Still, Flowers can be explosive and has 7 catches for 111 yards, 9 catches for 132 yards, and 7 catches for 115 yards in 3 of his last 4 games show how effective he can be with some of those passing plays. He also has a combined 33 targets in those games, and he's averaged 15.7 yards per catch. The one constant is that they were also games the Ravens were losing in the second half, or games that were close enough where they still had to throw the ball. The game they built a huge lead in Week 7, Flowers had just 1 catch for 11 yards and 1 rush, which is actually rare, for 19 yards. He has a very tough matchup this week against Denver, currently number 1 against wide receivers in fantasy football.
It must be noted that they did allow 3 touchdowns to the position in the last few weeks against the Saints and Panthers, which are really not that great of a team. They're not great teams, let's be honest. Still, they have allowed just 121.12 yards per game to this position. Denver is also tough on running backs, though, allowing under 4 yards per carry. This might mean that Flowers would get opportunities for third down big completions. If he can break a few tackles and get into the end zone, it would be a gigantic boost for the Stellar Bitches. But if the Ravens build a lead and just run the ball, Flowers can very easily put up a dud that would probably be the nail in the coffin barring any beast games elsewhere. For a host risky business, I'm looking at running back Josh Jacobs from the Packers. Jacobs has been doing okay at the position in his first 8 games, and his production has gone up recently. He has 667 yards and 3 scores on the ground. He's averaging 4.6 yards per carry. He also has 115 yards and a score through the air, and that receiving touchdown is the first one he's ever had in his career, which is actually insane when you think about it. The Packers will also be expected to run if Jordan Love is out or limited with his groin injury, although there have been times that Love still played and through, so who knows. The problem is that if Malik Willis starts, the offense they play a little bit differently, and Willis also will run in that kind of an offense, and they might not get many chances to score, which obviously limits Jacobs. Jacobs has 32 carries for 151 yards in week 2 with Love out. He had a combined 94 yards on 23 carries in the next 2 weeks without Love, so it kind of shows you how volatile it could be. He's coming off his best fantasy day, though. He had 127 yards and 2 scores against Jacksonville, obviously very good. Risky business will be hoping for that kind of momentum to continue. But Detroit this week in a first-place battle, and we know how that goes in the NFL. Detroit's also been on fire with their offense and special teams, and they also love to run the ball or do trick plays that can keep drives alive and give them the control in the time of possession battle. Jacobs needs the Packers to be close in this game, or he might need to do all his damage in the passing game, which is not what he does often. It's really not who he is. The Lions have been tough on running backs in fantasy because they have had the lead in so many games and have blown out some teams. They did allow 126 yards to the Titans last week. That was in garbage time, a lot of it. But there are 2 recent games that give Jacobs owners hope here. Kenneth Walker had 80 yards and 3 scores against the Lions in week 4, and Aaron Jones had 93 yards and a score in week 7. The Lions also gave up a touchdown to Kyron Williams in week 1, so it shows they're not completely stout at stopping running backs. It isn't impossible that Jacobs has an opportunity to reach the end zone. However, yards might be a problem. The Lions are allowing just 71 yards per game to the position on the ground. If risky business gets a score by Jacobs and gets double-digit points, it can be a very good compliment to the rest of his squad and will probably lead him to a big victory, again, barring beast games. But if Jacobs is limited and has a bust game, it certainly helps the Stellar Bitches, who will most likely be going with a touchdown-dependent option on the other side. Risky business clearly has the advantage here because of bye weeks, but as we saw last week, nothing is guaranteed and anything can happen. We had 2 huge upsets last week, including maybe one of the biggest of the season with Loki Lebowski Thor in the last game of the week. So who knows? Who knows? You know, what if golf puts up a 50 burger, for instance? I mean, we just don't know until the games begin, right? The rest of the league has some amazing matchups too, in what might be the biggest week of the game so far this season in the league. Potential playoff or Green Bowl previews as well. Let's check them out in the best of the rest. 2-6 Air Jordan hosts 2-6 Loki Lebowski Thor, a matchup that is most likely an elimination game. No one will be officially eliminated, but with tiebreakers in mind, needing to win 5 straight to close the season and still not being guaranteed a playoff spot is a tough place to be. Both teams are fresh off upsets last week, and the computers give Lebowski Thor a 62.6% chance to win. And he still needs to pick up a tight end, so probably not great for Air Jordan in terms of computer projections. Jalen Hurts versus Bo Nix is an area to watch. Nix has actually done great in fantasy lately and is probably an upgrade on the erratic benched Anthony Richardson. Hurts is a tush-push machine who can pile up touchdowns at will, though. Alvin Kamara versus Raheem Mostert, who was drafted by Lebowski Thor. And Chase Brown versus Javonte Williams are key areas, too. Marvin Harrison Jr. versus the now number 1 wide receiver in Tank Dell, and Tyreek Hill versus Cortland Sutton are other areas to watch. No team is projected to score more than 90 points, so this might be a low-scoring, grind-it-out type of matchup. 3-5 the Overcomers travels to Tokyo 1981 to take on 3-5 Green Acres in another massive tiebreaker game, with the losing squad not feeling too good about playoff chances. The Overcomers come in with a 66% chance to win, but Green Acres still needs a kicker. C.J. Stroud with his limited options to throw to against an expected Derek Carr if he returns, since Geno Smith looked awful last week, will obviously be a place to watch. Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones have a significant advantage over Ramondre Stevenson and Alexander Madison. Puka Nacua versus Cooper Kupp is another key spot, while Drake London has an advantage over Jacoby Myers. Cade Otton might have more targets than Sam Laporta as well. 3-5 Minerva's Minions travels to Moscow 24-35 to take on the 4-4 Elite Mother Tuckers in another huge tiebreaker matchup. No one will want to lose this one so late in the season, even with the Mother Tuckers holding a current 1-game lead. It is expected to be close with the Minions, currently holding a 56.7% chance to win. Kirk Cousins versus Dak Prescott will be key, with both teams hoping for a shootout. Bijan Robinson can cancel out or limit Cousins' production too, but Saquon Barkley gets a matchup that could mean big points unless he is vultured too many times by the tush-push again. Kenneth Walker versus Devon Achane is another key area, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Terry McLaurin versus DJ Moore and Devontae Smith could be the difference. David Njoku versus Cole Kmet and the Bengals versus Texans defenses could also change momentum in a big way. 4-4 the Glasshead Demonhead travels to Chicago 1967 to take on 6-2 Remember the Titans in a very interesting battle of teams that just fell in the power rankings. Remember the Titans has a 51.8% chance to win, surprisingly, but it could be because Brock Purdy is on a bye. The Glasshead Demonhead will need a healthy Jordan Love to also get the potential of Jaden Reed. Caleb Williams has a good matchup, but is very inconsistent and has an awful offensive line protecting him. DeAndre Swift could also get all the touchdowns, even if Williams throws well, which helps the Glasshead Demonhead. Jamar Gibbs versus Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase versus Garrett Wilson, and A.J. Brown versus Brian Robinson are other spots to watch. Remember the Titans also has to take a look at the concussion protocol from Malik Neighbors. Lastly, we get another huge matchup in the de facto second game of the week as 5-3 More Than Conquerors, first place in the European Void, takes on 6-2 Pounders, first place in the Asia Pacific Void. This one might determine the number 1 overall seed, or at the very least the first round bye, and it may be a playoff or Green Bowl preview with how the teams are playing right now. Pounders comes in with a 53.8% chance to win in what is expected to be a high-scoring, close battle that will probably come down to Monday night. Kyler Murray versus whoever Pounders goes with at quarterback will be key. Josh Allen is in there now, but I would not be surprised if he makes that change and goes with Jaden Daniels based on previous weeks. Joe Mixon versus Breece Hall in the Thursday night game is big, and David Montgomery versus James Cook will go a long way as well. Kareem Hunt versus James Conner is another area to watch. The running backs are pretty good in this one. CeeDee Lamb is the best wide receiver when you look at both squads, but More Than Conquerors may have to switch out DK Metcalf if he isn't back from his injury, which would mean a waiver move has to be made. Don't sleep on the Chargers versus Bills defense battle. The Browns may not be the easy matchup everyone hopes it to be now that Jameis Winston is throwing passes, and Miami has Tua Tagovailoa back, though the Bills always seem to stuff him, and Tua is always one big hit away from missing the rest of the season. It should be a super fun week overall in the league with all of these big-time matchups, and it will certainly start to clear up the picture for future playoff clinching scenarios that will happen in the next few weeks down the line. It must be said that there is always a fear of a loss at the wrong time for teams at the top. More Than Conquerors and Remember the Titans do not have the tiebreaker with the second-place teams behind them at the moment. I'm sure that the Overcomers can tell you all about that when they lost the division title and then got bounced in the wild card round. Pounders can be pulled back into a 3-team race that could delay division celebrations as well if the elite Mother Tuckers gain ground. Again, we've seen this happen. We've seen it happen. There's a long way to go. A long way to go. And championships aren't won in week 8 or week 9. They're won at the end in the Green Bowl. And we're still a few weeks away from our standings witching hour when we hit back into divisional play. That's the show for the week. Hope you enjoyed it as time continues to do strange things to us in this void. Before you go, check out the current standings. Until next time, salut.